So when I was a student at the University of Texas, I had to drive between Austin and my home outside of Fort Worth. And one thing I started to do early on would be to pull off Interstate 35 and start to take a look at some of the smaller towns that exist between here and there that you may completely miss if you're just driving by on the interstate. And as soon as you pull off, you discover this entirely different world, a totally different side of Texas than maybe you might have seen otherwise. There's this tremendous variety of the ways towns would be built, and just by looking at them visually, by walking through them, you began to be able to read the story of their history. It was almost as if you could read these towns like a book. One of the great things about looking at these towns is that they represent a series of layers, of historical layers of buildings that were built in the 1880s, 1890s, 1930s, 1980s. And in each era, you see sort of architects and designers and communities striving to sort of create a building that reflected their ideals. When I travel through Texas with friends or family, whether it's to visit a faraway relative or to find a good out-of-the-way barbecue joint, invariably I end up seeking out the courthouse in the town. They're these great centers of their community and reflect an amazing dedication on the part of the community to build something that established on the vast plains of Texas, this is our town, this is our community, this is who we are. And even today, many times 100 years after they were first built, you still see these buildings acting as centers of their communities. It's easy to take the built environment for granted, and one of the things that I think the Town Square Walk-Around Mobile Tour does is provides you just a little bit more information into the history behind some of these places and explain why it is they came to exist in the form that they do. So now that we have the app, let's take a look at New Braunfels, Texas and find some of the interesting history that lies just below the surface. So this particular tour starts at the Comal County Courthouse. Now, this particular courthouse was designed by James Riley Gordon. Now, Gordon did a bunch of courthouses in Texas, but what makes this one unique is its placement. You see, New Braunfels was founded by Germans, and in that part of Europe, they had a very specific sense of how public space should be used. It should be a dedicated open plaza. And so in this case, the courthouse doesn't sit on the middle of the square, it sits off to the side, and that defined the development of New Braunfels all the way moving forward. You know, when you walk by the old Schmitz Hotel today, you get a sense that it's an old building, pretty cool, but what the app gives you is some old photographs to help you understand better what the building originally looked like when it was built in 1851. You know, we all know what hardware stores look like today, but in 1893, things look very different. Here at the Henne Hardware store, you get a sense of how products used to be displayed, and even though the goods are modern that are on display now, you still get a sense of what it might have been like to live in New Braunfels at the turn of the 20th century. An important turning point in the history of New Braunfels was when the railroad came through in 1885. Suddenly, farmers and ranchers had an easy way to get their products to market. Also, the people of New Braunfels had a way to connect to the outside world. This passenger terminal behind me represents sort of this departure point for those people where they would be able to connect to the outside world. Although the tours typically concentrate on the downtown parts of these cities, we also like to include a few destinations that are further afield. So in the case of New Braunfels, you can come out to Landa Park and see Comal Springs, the largest natural collection of springs in Texas.